Did you know that nearly half of all women are actively trying to lose weight? I would actually say it's more than that, but yet, despite the endless diets, workouts, and weight loss hacks, over 80% of those efforts fail to achieve long term results. It's no wonder the weight loss industry is one of the largest in the world, raking in billions of dollars while so many women are left frustrated and defeated. For midlife women, this struggle often feels even more daunting. Hormonal changes, muscle loss, and shifting body composition create new challenges that seem to defy traditional advice like eat less and move more. That's why I'm thrilled to welcome one of what I think is the world's leading experts in fat loss, Dr. Bill Campbell, to dive into this topic. As a PhD fat loss scientist, professor of exercise science, and director of the Performance and Physique Enhancement Laboratory at the University of South Florida, Dr. Campbell has authored 3 books on sports nutrition, is the author of over 200 scientific papers and abstracts on topics related to fat loss, sports nutrition, physique enhancement, and exercise performance. While his earlier work focused on younger populations, he's recently found a new passion, understanding fat loss in midlife women, particularly during the menopausal transition. Today, we'll explore this groundbreaking insights into what really happens to women's bodies during midlife, why traditional dieting fails us, and how hormones like estradiol could play a game-changing role in fat loss and body composition. Dr. Campbell, welcome to the show.
Well, that was quite the introduction, and thank you for having me.
Well, I feel like I'm one of your biggest fans now.
Wow, all right. This is going to go so well.
And I was just telling you before we started to air that I actually joined your group, which I think is awesome. And I'll just put it out there right now for all of my listeners. I think $7.99 a month. Is that right?
Yes, yep, it's
Yes.
that's for the research review, and
Yes.
then I do those talks recordings for just as a bonus.
Right. Yeah. So like really affordable, but if somebody is a little bit of a geek like myself when it comes to fat loss and muscle and putting muscle on and performance and fitness and it is a wealth of information. I mean, there's so much stuff in there and I've just been pouring. I just go from one to the next. And I'm like, "Ooh, look at this topic. Oh, look at that one." It's like
Awesome.
opening it up. And yeah, you've got great webinars in there. And the most recent one, which is why I joined, is I wanted to watch the webinar about this paper about menopausal weight gain, which we're absolutely going to jump into. But first, let's discuss why did you switch? I mean, you've been doing fat loss for the younger people, and now suddenly you've got this newfound passion of trying to figure out and researching midlife weight issues.
Yes, so that the answer to that question can be answered in 2 words, my wife.
Mm,
There's the reason, and
so sweet.
let me tell the story.
Hmm.
As you said, been doing, I would even say pioneering fat loss research for many
Yeah.
years. So diet breaks, high protein, mostly in women, but also sometimes male populations as well. But the theme here is younger and what I would say metabolically healthy people. So these would be the type of subjects that respond very consistently to a caloric deficit. Then, as I more got involved in social media not too many years ago, occasionally I would get, messages or just, I would even say complaints from middle-aged women, 40s, 50s, 60s, just saying, hey, I'm in a caloric deficit, but I'm not losing weight. And my general response, I would always want to have empathy, but I'm like, well, the research says if you're in a caloric deficit, you lose body weight. But I kept getting these, but never really had, never made a large impression on how I went about my work. Then my wife went through menopause, and I would put her in a category that I call the train wreck category, meaning it was
Yeah.
not a good experience for her. One of the things that she experienced was weight gain, and that was only one of the things. But fortunately for her, she's married to a fat loss researcher, somebody who literally spends almost every single day of my life reading fat loss research. And I had previously helped, design programs for her. She would get lean, maybe gain a little bit of weight, and then we get lean again. So I know my wife, and we've worked together for many years.
Hmm.
This time she could not lose body fat despite me using tools that have always worked for her and for everybody else.
Hmm.
So getting her calories down to, I want to say, around 1100 for several weeks and not losing any body fat. And now I don't want to say embarrassed, but I'm like, this is horrible. Like, I'm a fat loss researcher and I cannot help you. And then I started talking about it. And then the messages started pouring in. My wife is one of thousands of women, and I'm referring to this as weight loss resistance.
Yes.
Um, and the way, well, let me just finish. So, having my wife's experience, realizing
Hmm.
an outpouring of thousands, and I literally can point to thousands of messages in my phone of women experiencing similar outcomes. And I also need the context. The context is I mostly work with women who have embraced a fitness lifestyle.
Yes.
So I'm not really dealing with sedentary women, women who don't know what a barbell is. So the messages I'm getting, like my wife, are from women who've been fit their whole lives. And I realize we have a ton of data on menopause, but this is the first time in history where we've had women who have embraced a fitness lifestyle for 10, 15 years prior. And we don't have data on this population. I mean, it is even the study that I summarized in my latest issue, that wasn't in women who exercised. I mean, it's still very enlightening.
Hmm.
So I realized I have so much to learn, and I'm not changing my expertise. I'm a fat loss researcher and somebody who prioritizes muscle, try to build muscle, don't lose muscle during weight loss. But now I'm shifting that to this midlife menopause transition. So
Hmm.
there's my answer to the question.
I love it. Yeah, I've talked to so many male doctors who have a very similar story where they're like, "Oh, I was just going along my business, doing my work, doing my doctoring, and my wife hit menopause." And they realized, "Oh, this is like who did my wife just become? What just happened?" And she's suffering immensely and there's no help out there. So they have to go out and figure it out for themselves. And then when they start going down that rabbit hole, they're like, oh my gosh, like we know nothing about this, or we're not sharing the right information about this. And then they get that fire under their ass and they're like, that's it. This is what I got to do. So it's great that there's become more awareness around this because I mean this is my passion, Bill. I got into this because of that story. I mean, when I had my kid at 30, my early 30s, I had severe weight loss resistance. I was working out harder than I'd ever worked out in my life. I was doing CrossFit. I was trying every diet under the sun and I was like so strict with my diet. I tried everything. There was one point that I was down to like 800 calories a day, working out 6 days a week, and I just continued to get fatter and fatter and fat. And I was like, how? How is this even possible if you look at the rules of energy in, energy out? And I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I got my hormones tested and realized a whole bunch of stuff with my hormones, fixed it, and the weight just naturally came off, and I never had to diet again. And then menopause hit, same thing. I was like, here I am now, a nutritionist who's dealing with weight loss resistance in women, thinking I'm going to sail through this time. I got it all figured out. Hit this early menopause, gained 15 pounds overnight without changing anything and was like, what the heck? How is this happening again? And so both times have taught me that you can be so healthy and doing everything right. You're not drinking, you're exercising, you're lifting weights, you're prioritizing protein, and this can still happen. And yet women, they just blame themselves and then they try and do things harder, like, oh, I just got to work out more, I got to eat less. And it just doesn't work. And so we need a different protocol, a different system. And so that's your job. I'm just gonna put
Well,
that on you, Bill.
yeah. I have a calling that I believe is to bring this weight loss resistance into the scientific literature so that it can't be ignored. Now, again,
Mhm.
there are, not that that's not important, but there's cancer rates, there's CVD risk that goes up. So there's other very important aspects of aging and postmenopausal health risks, but I'm not trained, nor do I have the interest in those. But if I help with helping people lose excess body fat, I'm helping a lot of those other health problems or those elevated
Yeah.
risks alone just through that. So yes, I know my place in the world. I know where I'm skilled, and this is what I'm tackling.
Yes. So we know that there's not a lot of research on this topic. You did find this great paper that I want to discuss, but up until recent, it's, when you start researching it, it's all like, oh, the menopausal transition, it's average, you're just going to gain a kilo a year, which is no different than what it's just from aging. This is just this is normal part of aging. This is what we see across the board is you're going to gain about this much every single year. And menopause has nothing to do with it. So that's wrong, isn't it?
I believe that is wrong, and why that's important, that distinction.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much it's changing. I don't. I think most people, and I remember. I don't want to say having arguments. I don't have arguments, but just like debating or having conversations with fitness professionals. They're like, no, it's just aging. But if it is just aging, there's not much we can do. But if it's menopause transition, and if that implication means changing hormone levels, well, now that demands another conversation about, okay, well, what can we do about this? So I think it's very important to acknowledge it is more than aging. Aging does, because I'm aging, I gain body fat, or males do, and we don't go through menopause. So there clearly is some aging aspect to this. But what that study showed us, and I'm sure we'll get into this, there were clearly defined accelerated rates of increase of body fat and reductions in lean mass around the menopause transition, which again, if it were aging alone, we shouldn't have seen those slopes of those lines changing. So it's
Mhm.
important because it invites the conversation that should be taking place with a woman and her personal physician.
Mm-hmm. Because it's pretty frustrating when you start looking at that research and then being on the front lines, working with thousands of women over the last decade and a half. And you hear from so many of them the struggle that they've had with their weight when they hit this time. And then it's like, then you look at the science and you hear from doctors like, no, your metabolism doesn't slow down. No, menopause has nothing to do with your weight gain. It's like, what? But it's got to. Like, nothing's working anymore. So it's not the same. And so this paper did actually show, and I loved how you broke it down in your webinar. And I'd love for you to just tell us about the study. How was it run?
All right, and I want to make one comment just on something you just said about metabolisms not slowing down. The way that a lot of physicians, and let me also just say generally, most researchers in this space don't acknowledge a menopause related weight gain. They just say it's age. So that's the researchers,
Hmm.
those are the
Hmm.
experts. And I tried to debunk that, which we can talk about. But
Hmm.
this idea of metabolism not slowing down, let me tell you how that's interpreted, which allows researchers, physicians to make that statement, and
Yeah.
them saying things which are true, but there's a caveat that's missing with this. So the way that they will often measure your metabolism as we age is relative to your lean mass. So if let's just say you have 10 units of lean mass and let's say your metabolism is 10. Well, if your metabolism goes down to 8, but your muscle went to 8, it's still 1 to 1. So they say, look, no, it didn't go down. Your metabolism relative to your muscle mass. So that's a true statement.
Hmm.
But when that happens, you've lost muscle and you've lost your metabolic rate. Like they both have gone down. So that's why it's so important to prioritize muscle mass, because if you can maintain your muscle mass through this transition, your metabolic rate won't slow down. You'll still have a muscle mass of 10 and hopefully a metabolism of 10 as well. Now, hopefully, that's the first time I tried to articulate this. Hopefully, that made sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Because basically what you're saying is putting muscle on has a lot to do with our metabolic rate, right? Like
yes,
it's
yes.
thermogenic. Like the more muscle you have, the higher you're going to be burning up that fat, which is why we want to put muscle on. Well,
Yes.
one of the
Now,
main
I will
reasons.
say gaining muscle does not give us a huge boost in our metabolism. We used to think that that is not true.
Hmm. Okay.
But in all of my fat loss research, I can tell you just by looking at the metabolic rate data, I can tell you how much muscle my subjects lost. When you lose muscle, you lose your metabolic rate. But again, if you keep that ratio, the appearance is such that, oh, you didn't lose it. But so there's that. Now, let's talk about this study. So
Hmm.
this study was part of the SWAN study. You're somebody like you, you're probably very familiar with that. And what they did, and again, I've been reading a lot of this weight gain research during menopause, and this was clearly the best study to answer the question. And it is hard to to answer the question, why do women gain weight during their 40s and 50s during midlife? Is it because of aging or menopause? Well, that's very hard to answer because you can't separate them. Scientists, we answer questions by isolating something and changing something else. So, but you can't stop aging while going through the menopause transition, nor can you stop the menopause transition while you're aging. So it's difficult. But what these researchers did was they followed women for approximately 15 years, clearly premenopausal when they started, and clearly postmenopausal when the study ended. And so they were able to document the normal amounts of weight gain. And because they knew when their menopause transition occurred, and this is based on the FMP, final menstrual period, they were able to determine that about 2 years prior to this, and I think around 52 is when women had their final menstrual period. About 2 years prior to that, and up to about 1.5 to 2 years after that, what they noticed was significant increases in the rate of body fat gain. And they actually had a starting to lose muscle mass during that same time.
Hmm.
So again, now if it was just aging, we would expect these things to just stay on a normal trend. But because of the menopause transition, because they looked at this retrospectively, because they followed them for so long, they were able to precisely say, this is not aging. This is in direct concert with a change in hormone levels. Now, they didn't say hormone levels. They called it menopause transition. I'm inferring we know what happens to hormone levels during the menopause transition. So this is, I believe, a hormonal change throughout this process. So there's kind of the
Hmm.
overview of the study and how they went about answering their question.
Yeah, and it went from 1% body weight increase a year to 1.7%. But then
And
during the transition time from peri to post, the average gain of fat was 6%, which that's a big
yeah,
jump
yeah. So over that period, yeah. Yeah. So on average, okay, here, this
on,
is a good way to
yeah.
say it. They're gaining on average 1% of body fat per year. And then during the menopause transition, it almost doubled from 1% to 1.7%. And then over this approximately 4 year period, we have about a 6% increase in body fat percentage. And that's only half of the story. The other half was they started to lose lean tissue during this same period where they're gaining fat. And
Mhm.
one important point here is, and I tell this to I teach a science of weight management class to undergraduate students. And one thing I tell them is whenever we're reading weight loss research, always disregard body weight. Body weight doesn't tell us a lot. So we need to peel
Right.
back and say, okay, body weight's changing, but what's happening to body composition? And this is where just this concept alone is where all of the researchers, all of the physicians, all of the fitness professionals get this wrong. What's happening to the women in this study was they were gaining fat and losing muscle. And when you gain one tissue and you lose another, there's not much of a change overall. So that can lead people to think, oh, yeah, body weight's fairly
Right.
stable. Well, that's true with body weight, but that's not the story. The story is their
Right.
body composition is taking a very bad change from more fat and less lean tissue. So, an elementary approach to interpreting or analyzing weight loss research is often not followed by some of the people that we look up to in our system here.
And so with your history of everything you know about weight gain and weight loss, how much do you think then is driving this weight gain in this 4-year period? Do you think primarily that we're losing the muscle that's driving it, or like a combination of what's happening possibly with the hormones? And I know hormones are very important for to keep your muscles intact and grow them. But like from what you've seen before in the history of all the research that you've done, like how much is muscle going to play into this?
I think it plays into it some, but even I don't think it's a one-to-one. So
Okay.
losing muscle has a host of other health, creates a lot of health problems. So does increasing or having excess body fat, a host of other problems, and both of them impact metabolic health.
Mhm.
Um, but I wouldn't say, hey, if we can just maintain your muscle, you're going to be
Yeah.
fine. I wouldn't say that. Now, you're in a much better place if you maintain your muscle during this phase of life.
Mhm.
Just like you're in a much better place if you can not gain excess body fat. I would say just globally, and now I'm talking more theoretical. What I think, so a woman, let's use my wife again as an example. If my wife were to diet extremely and severely, let's say get her down to 6, 7, 800 calories per day for weeks at a time, I think she would have lost fat. Um, but the level of dieting that she would have needed to do to lose fat is not sustainable and clearly not healthy. Now, in your case, you said 800, maybe if we got you to 600 calories. There seems to be something during this menopause transition that's just making you having to do such extreme approaches to get body fat to be enticed to reduce that you didn't have to do during your premenopausal years. So it's not that I don't think a caloric deficit doesn't work during this phase. It's just that the level of the caloric deficits that need to be induced seem to be for lack of a better word, insane for
Yeah.
some women.
I would say it's a little insane too. And then all of the backup mechanisms that start to happen, it's like, what's the point? We know this is yo-yo dieting. Extreme caloric restriction only leads to you being more hungry and then gaining all the weight back, and all these like backup systems start to come into play that it's just not feasible to do that, if you ask me. But do
Yes,
you see
yes.
it differently?
No, it's not feasible and it's not healthy. And again, that creates a lot of other problems that are now more than just excess body fat. I also just had another thought.
Hmm.
There are some women that go through this phase of life without any of these problems that we're discussing.
Yeah.
They exercise and they're like, I didn't gain weight. And the temptation for that person is to say, you're just not working hard enough. Listen, I exercise and I don't discount that, but that's not everybody's experience and everybody's story. Just like not everybody's going to have, like my wife, not everybody's going to have a horrible experience. So I always just want to be cautious that we don't say everybody's going to have a horrible menopause.
No,
No, not at all.
no,
A
no,
lot
no.
of women in fitness don't, and that's great. Might
Mhm.
even be the majority. But I want to be, I have to check myself to make sure there are no absolutes. Some people are going to have a horrible time. Some people are going to have an easier time.
I know. I liked how you broke it down. You were like 15%, they'll be fine. They sail through, they don't gain much weight or any weight at all. And then 70%, yeah, they're going to gain some and we'll be able to manage it. And then you got the other 15%, which you call train wrecks. I feel like I was a train wreck. I was like your wife. It's just like everything that could happen happened. And it's like, ah. And what's interesting is what got a lot of mine off was simply lifting heavier and eating more protein and
Nice.
not going into a caloric deficit. I did not at all. I just was like, I'm just going to eat more protein and I'm going to lift heavier. And I got
And
like
and
10
you
pounds off.
and you didn't even start HRT or anything
Oh, no,
to
I
it was
did.
okay.
Yeah. I
But
gave
that's
my
an
body the
important.
tools.
Yes. So that's again to me at this point, and this is what I want to have I want my lab to put evidence out for this. But here's what I think
Okay.
today. It's almost like your body's not adjusting to, let's just say, the more protein, the lifting weights, the exercising. But as soon as you address the hormonal deficiencies, now the normal tools that used to work suddenly work again. It's not that
100%.
the HRT is melting body fat off of your body and just building muscle, but it's putting your physiology back to where it responds to the stimulus of a caloric deficit, if that's what's needed, or the stimulus of building muscle from resistance training. I like the phrase that you said. You gave it the what did you just say? It was the tools you
The
gave it the
tools. I gave my body the tools
yes.
so that it could lose weight.
Yes, I think I like the
Hmm.
way that's phrased. So
Hmm.
again, I don't know if there's I don't think there's magic, but it just allows your body to adapt the way it should adapt
Hmm.
to the tools that we have.
Yeah, I have found in clinical experience that very rarely is hormone replacement therapy this magic bullet where a woman will slap it on and boom, she loses 10 pounds. I've seen it, don't get me wrong. And it's like, oh, good on you if that does happen. And that happened to me in my earlier years, in my 30s, after having children. When I took progesterone cream, I did lose 10 pounds in a month that I could not get off of post-pregnancy weight, not until I put the progesterone in. And it was like magic. That didn't happen when I started to use the hormones when I went into early perimenopause, menopause, but I still used them because it made me feel better. And then I went out and I did the work. And so I do believe it was like, yeah, that combination. And I think that most women, that's what happens. It's like you give the body the tools that it needs to help maintain that muscle, to be insulin sensitive, to be anabolic with your estrogen, if maybe you need testosterone, and then you put that work in and you're going to see some results.
Yes, yep. And
Yeah.
how fortunate or blessed or wise you were in your 30s. Again, clearly that wasn't menopause related, but that you got your blood tested, that you had a healthcare
Yes,
professional that said, "Hey, progesterone could help." Because I think you would agree, there's a lot of women who just suffer through that for many
they
years.
do, and go on antidepressants, right? So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
no,
they'll
I
give
was
you that.
very
They'll
lucky.
give you
Yeah, they'll
that
give you
very
that, no
quickly.
problem. Yeah. Which is what I was given when I had my daughter. That's what was the first line of like treatment, was antidepressants and a sleeping pill. That's what I
Yep.
got, and told to work out harder. Yeah. So
Thanks.
yeah, it was awesome. So I had to figure it out for myself, which is all good because I wouldn't be here today if it didn't happen. So I'm grateful. I really
Me
am.
too. I'm glad that you had a
That
horrible
I had
short,
that
hopefully
horrible
short period of time.
that I was
You
the
can
train
help
wreck.
educate me.
Yeah. Uh, what I want to discuss was the timing of this, which I thought was so interesting and something that I've been really beating the drum on lately, is that they saw this happening 2 years prior to menopause, which, as you said, menopause is you've had a year without a cycle. So that's what determines if you're in menopause or not. So it was the 2 years leading up and the 2 years after. And when we look at the years of perimenopause, which 8 to 10 years is average now for women and to be in perimenopause. So it's the start of like your hormones really taking a bit of a dive. We lose the progesterone, typically late 30s, early 40s. Then you go through till you get to like mid 40s to late 40s, couple years prior to actual menopause. That's when we start losing estradiol. And so progesterone's typically long gone at this point that this research showed this. Like we drop progesterone by about 75%. A lot of women now, when they get to that 2 years prior to menopause, let's say you're late 40s, 50, that progesterone's almost like you can't find it on labs because we're not ovulating anymore. Some women do, but no, it's not very often that you'll see a woman
Mhm.
with progesterone that's 48 or 49. It's the estrogen loss that I think was impacting this fat gain and muscle loss, a lot of it.
Yeah, well, I agree. Um, did you read the other issue where they gave women estradiol that were early postmenopausal? Did you see that issue yet?
Yeah, the one that
So
Kristen and Maria wrote in
yes,
about.
yes, that one.
Yes. Yeah, I have it pulled up on my screen actually right now. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's I mean, you just said the muscle. That was a randomized intervention trial, women getting placebo or estradiol, significantly increased muscle mass when given estradiol in early postmenopause, like when you're saying the levels are already lower. And again, it's not that the women that were on the placebo didn't respond at all. They did, but it was nowhere near. So I just rely that's
Hmm.
one of the best, what I call a landmark study
Hmm.
to support what you're saying. The estradiol changes, the suppression of estradiol production is likely a key, probably the key driver of a lot of these body composition changes.
Yeah. I mean, estradiol's anabolic. We've got receptors for estradiol on the muscle fibers. Like women always think it's testosterone, and testosterone has a lot to do with it, but it's estrogen for women. And, it's testosterone for the guys mostly, but it's estrogen for women. And I don't think that that's often put together where it's like, oh, muscle? We need estrogen for muscle, like that. Just like nobody thinks that. I don't, and it's a little bit more thanks to Dr. Stacy Sims, and there's some people that are really trying to get that word out there that, hey ladies, it's actually your estrogen that you need to help with body composition, because estrogen's got a bad rap. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to take estrogen, I'm going to get fat, because it's what gives us hips and breasts and curves, but it's also the most important for metabolic health and for muscle and to maintain that muscle so we don't lose it. And that study was great because it was a double blind placebo study where everybody had a patch on. They didn't know
Yep.
if one of them was real and one of them, if what they got was actual estrogen on that patch or not. And it showed us like pretty significant changes with the muscle.
Yeah, and they lost more body fat. I think that
Yeah.
was statistically significant as well. So yeah, everything that you'd want to happen happened when they restored to some amount, to some level of their estradiol levels. And I remember Kristen and
Mhm.
Maria said, "Hey, that to them that was such a low amount. Like imagine if they would have gotten what they should have gotten."
Yes. Yeah, yeah. They were like, oh, this is still bottom of the barrel estrogen levels for menopausal women. Like, what if we actually gave them physiologic replacement? How much more would they have thrived? And that was like a
Yes.
really
Yep.
good point, right? But in the other study, it did show, so we see this great big, we're not great big, but this influx of fat mass in that 4 years. And then, very interesting, it plateaued.
Yes. Post menopause,
which you see.
so when we're getting, let's just say about approximately 2 years after your last menstrual cycle, um, pretty much everything levels out. So you're not losing as much muscle mass anymore. You're not gaining as much body fat, which means body weight is also pretty stable. Yeah, that's what that study showed. Yes.
And this is what we see. And I'm always telling women like it's the perimenopausal years that we need to be treating in menopause for sure. But this is where we tend to suffer the most. And so like from that study and what you're doing and what you're going to be doing in the years to come, I think that it would be great to have like a protocol, a system, a checkbox of a list of like things that you check off where it's like, okay, what's your FSH? What's your estradiol number at? And then kind of go, this is where we start to see, like there is one paper that shows when women's FSH got above 23, that they saw a correlation that that's when the weight gain started.
Mm,
So if we could have these markers that we'd all be on the lookout for, like, okay, watch my FSH. And then when we see estradiol getting to this number, when we start to see these symptoms, when we start to see body composition changing, we're losing our muscle mass and we're getting DEXA scans done regularly. And we start to see all these little markers start shifting, that it would be like, okay, now's the time. Let's get on some hormones. And so we can mitigate this. And I think that that's what
yeah.
we have to create is this like, okay, here's where we start to intervene, people, because let's not wait till you're a hot mess in menopause, 20 pounds overweight and no muscle.
Yes, and also feeling bad, having no energy, maybe depression. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it might be a lot easier to intervene, like what you're saying well, let me just say, it will be a lot easier to have these interventions on the front end.
Yes, yes. So you've been doing some new kind of, I think you're doing it to yourself by the sounds of it. Like you're your own guinea pig here with some extreme dieting tactics. Can you share with us what you're doing there? Sounded
Yeah.
interesting.
So, in a nutshell, I don't want to if embracing's the right word, but I'm investigating extreme fat loss protocols to see if that would be a to give us better outcomes. Now, some people would say, "Oh, you're advocating for crash dieting." No, I am. My whole career has been antithetical to crash dieting. Crash dieting is when you starve yourself for extended periods of time. What will happen is you'll lose a lot of weight, you'll lose a lot of fat, but you will lose a lot of muscle. And as soon as you're done with this extended crash dieting, starving yourself period, you quickly regain body fat back and you gain more than what you had before you started. Happens every time. So crash dieting, horrible, horrible approach to weight loss. What I'm looking at is not crash dieting, it is severe dieting. But what makes it different is it's very short term, so it's calculated on days or weeks, and we do everything that we know protects your muscle during these periods of time during a caloric deficit, which is relatively high protein and resistance exercise. So, um, historically, again, I'm on the record thousands of times for saying go slow, go moderate, and now I don't know if that has been the best advice. It may be better for some people to diet very aggressively for a very short period of time and then stop dieting. And then maybe after another month or two, do that again, as opposed to long periods of moderate dieting. Now, long periods of moderate dieting, my lab is specialized in. We've we've done very well in younger people. They lose fat, they maintain all of their muscle, their metabolic rates don't get suppressed, so it works.
Mhm.
But for women in midlife who have weight loss resistance, can we, and my lab is actively researching this right now, we just finished our first subject. And as you suggested, I actually piloted this. So did Landon Shanahan, my research coordinator. She went through this. She's a younger female. And essentially, what we're doing is let's go very aggressively, a few hundred calories a day for 4 days. This is just there's could be a lot of different outlooks of this, but ours is 4 days, almost all protein in your diet. So I think it was 1.6 grams per kg or zero point 0.75 grams per pound. And we have our subjects walk 6 hours per day.
What?
So
6 hours a day?
yeah,
Oh,
6 hours
so all you're
plus.
doing is walking.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. You're wise because when I was going to do this, I'm like, oh, I'll walk 2 hours and I'll do some work and I'll walk. No, you're walking and and recovering. I got very little work done during the 4 days. So you have an intuition that I didn't have. I'm like, I'll check email.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work because again, it's a lot of recovery as well. But earlier I had said it's possible during this menopause transition that it seems that you have to diet so hard to get body weight to lose. Well, what if we
Mhm.
did embrace that, but not in a way that brings harm because it's so short that you
Mhm.
won't lose muscle tissue? So we have prior research in males with a very similar protocol where they did not lose muscle mass. All of their health markers, lipid panel, metabolic health, they were all improved with a similar protocol. So I'm taking this previous research and saying, let's try this. So we're testing two women. This is a case series study, so this isn't a full blown,
Okay.
50, 80 subject study. But we're testing two women premenopause, two women that are in perimenopause, and then four women postmenopause, two that are on HRT and two that are not on HRT.
Oh, I can't wait to see the results.
Yeah, yeah. And it's giving me pilot data essentially along with the survey study we're doing. So I'm getting all of this early information without, spending years just getting,
Mhm.
survey, case series to get me immediate feedback on, okay, where do we want to go next? Um, and again, the key here is can we do this without harm? And when I say harm, I mean we don't want to lose muscle mass. That would be
Mhm.
harm. Um, so yeah, we just and I haven't even talked about that study, this case series study publicly yet. Maybe it was on my webinar if I may have mentioned it there,
Yeah,
but
you did.
okay. So not on social media. I haven't discussed it. I
Okay.
will soon. But I'm very intrigued as well because what if that could be something that somebody would get some fat loss success without causing harm? And I will also say, there's I've dieted my whole life. I'm a fat loss researcher. I come from an obese family, so I gain weight, and sometimes I gain weight on purpose so I can lose it because I like to, it stimulates research ideas. The thought of me going on a diet for 3 months or 5 months, I would just want to put toothpicks in my eyes at this point.
Yeah,
I,
same.
I want to be short, get in and get out, and then just maintain. So, on many levels, just even on a personal interest level or a distaste for longer term dieting, this appeals to me. And we also have a lot of multiple studies in people with obesity. If you have early and significant weight loss success, the long term weight loss maintenance is the outcomes are significantly better. So, there's even a reason to do this in people with obesity because, and again, I'm
Right.
actually working on a future issue of my research review, which is basically showing this. Their protocols were not ideal. It was too long of a severe diet approach, so they lost more
Mhm.
muscle mass. They actually lost these are women. They lost some bone mineral density. But
Mhm.
I'm very confident that if the protocols would have been more optimal, like similar
Mhm.
to what we're doing, I don't think we would have any of these negative outcomes.
And so they're not, you guys aren't lifting weights. You're just doing 6 hours of walking. Are you eating one meal a day or are we breaking this up? Did you put
So
that in like
So the
fasting?
women in this study have to be resistance training to get into this study.
Okay.
So that's a prerequisite. We do not have them lifting weights during these 4 days because
Okay.
we want an immediate and robust fat loss stimulus. Now, resistance training is a stimulus for fat loss, but I don't want them lifting 5 hours per day. They'll be too sore. We just want a fat loss stimulus, which is best applied acutely through aerobic exercise. So the intention is that you don't lift during these 4 days, but if you want to lift, you should lift after that. And let me just also say,
Hmm.
for the next 3 days, we say go back to your normal eating patterns that
I
you
was going to
were
ask
before
that.
the diet. And then we have them come back in for their post testing because we don't want to test them after on the fifth day after doing 6 hours of walking. There's going to be fluid shifts, which will mess up your body composition assessments. Even your metabolic rate can be influenced by what you did the day prior. And then we have them coming back a month later to make sure that whatever happened, did it stay? Or was there a weight gain rebound? Because that's not a good
Rebound. Yeah.
outcome at that
Yeah.
point. Which I would predict would happen if we did this severe diet for, let's say, 7 days or 10 days.
Yes.
I think you're looking at a what we call body fat overshoot. But since it's so short, I don't see that happening. And we're getting blood work on these women,
So
getting
you're
them,
looking at,
they
are you
have to
looking at
test.
thyroid?
Yeah, we have it's we got all of the progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, free testosterone. Yeah, I think even reverse T3. So TSH,
That's what I
T3,
want. Yeah.
T4. I think reverse T3, and then lipid
Yeah.
panels, comprehensive metabolic panel, all
Yeah.
of that.
And how many calories are you eating
So we tell them eat 1.6 grams per kg or 0.75
of
grams
protein?
of protein per pound with as little extra calories coming from fat and carbs. So in a perfect world, it would be 100% protein. Our latest subject, she is a small, she was only eating like 360 calories for the four
Oh,
days.
geez. Yeah.
She's
Okay.
small. She did very well though. And it's funny, I did it and I was like, I was over it by day 4. Like I couldn't wait for it to get over. She actually struggled more the first 2 days. Funny story.
Yes.
My last day I taught till 8 o'clock and it was my last day. And I had like another hour of walking and I knew that the next day I could go back to normal calories. I went to our grocery store and just looked at all the food for my last hour of walking.
So you started to get the food obsession.
I guess so. Like I was looking
Yeah.
at, in my grocery store, which I just thought it was kind of natural. I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm walking around looking at um different foods. Um, but yeah.
I did that when I went on the HCG diet, so a very
Oh,
long time ago,
I know
and
that diet.
that's 500 calories a day. It worked. It worked, but yeah, by the end of it, I was so food obsessed. All I did was watch the Food Network and
Which
just
is probably the worst thing.
dream. It was, and but I would just sit there and think about all the things I was gonna make when this was over.
How long were you on 500 calories a day?
It's 7 weeks, I do believe it is 6 or 7 weeks. Yeah.
So there's no doubt you lose fat, but man, I would be very worried about the rebound effect. I don't know. Hopefully you didn't experience that, but that would be my concern.
No, a lot of it stayed off actually.
Good.
But what was interesting is years later when I started to gain some weight, I remember I tried it again and I had zero results. And I saw that with so many people I knew because it was such the fad back then. This is like 20 years ago. It was
Yeah.
such a fad to do. Well, maybe not that long ago. Let's not age myself here. But yeah, that people would do it the first time and they'd lose all this weight, but then they would try it again. And they would, of course, eventually gain the weight back because they didn't change their lifestyle. I had a
Yeah.
great lifestyle, so I think I was able to maintain that most of the weight loss for a while, for several years. So it did work, but I'm sure I lost a ton of muscle because I wasn't lifting. Had no energy to lift weights or do anything. It was
Yeah, that's
just like
true.
just go into the fat loss mode. But yours now, does this theory of yours, this diet, does it stem from the protein modified fasting? I think it's called from Lyle. I
Um,
read it on Lyle McDonald had a, you know him.
yeah. I've
Mhm.
not read his books, but I don't know
He
what
has like an
what he may
extreme
have written
approach.
about.
It's like the protein sparing modified diet, I think it was, where it's like
Protein
all you
modified
eat.
fat, protein.
Yeah, it's like it's got like an acronym
Yeah,
to it. Yeah.
modified fast. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not knowing the details of what his
It's
diet was.
something like that.
It is, I mean, it's all protein and it's,
Yes.
yeah, six
Yeah.
hours. We're doing 6 hours. The previous research that we kind of mimicked ours in men, they had them walking 8 hours per day. Yeah. And those were
My
men with
gosh.
obesity. And I would think, wow, there's got to be
Their
like knee
knees must have
pain.
been,
And,
yeah.
but I'm telling you, the results on that were surprising to me. They actually tested a year out, and even a year out, they had maintained not all of their body fat,
What?
but much of their body fat losses. So yeah, they did just like we're doing 4 days, then 3 days back to normal. And then we come back a month later, so did they, but they came back a month and then a year later. And it's even the clinical markers were still were better even at a year out. It was very intriguing. So yeah,
I
I'm just
wrote,
taking kind of
yeah.
that model to the menopause transition population.
Yeah, I think that's great. I do have something like that too in my course, like the rapid fat loss. Very similar, just high protein, very short amount of time, just to get that extra weight off. Maybe you got to go do something or whatever. But can we hear the results yet? I mean, this isn't being aired till the new year, so
Oh, no, can't share. We only
okay.
have one subject through it so far. So, um,
But you
I,
went through it.
yeah, oh yeah, I can share my results.
Yeah, share
Yeah,
yours,
my
because
results were when I have to remember now. I, I lost about 3% of my body weight. So let's just say I was 200 pounds. That would be, no, actually, it was a little less, about two and a half. So I lost about 5 pounds of body weight over the 4 days. It was not 100% fat like I was hoping. I lost some lean tissue.
some
It was
water.
probably like 70% fat, 30% lean mass. Um, did I get blood work? I don't think I got blood work on mine. No, I didn't get, I didn't, did I get blood work? I don't think I got blood work on mine. So I don't know, if whatever it did to my thyroid,
Mhm.
etc. Um, my metabolic rate though was pretty stable. It was a situation where I would do it again. I didn't have any desire to do it very soon, and I probably did it about 2 months ago. But the funny thing that I kept thinking was it was hard, and as like I don't want to overeat now because I just did that. So it really impressed upon me. Be good, Bill. Don't overeat because look at what I just did to lose this couple pounds of body fat.
So have you maintained it?
Yeah, and since then I've even lost
You've lost
some
more.
additional, but that's because of other
Ah,
I
okay.
wouldn't attribute it to that. That's just my
Okay.
own normal diet cycling lifestyle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um yeah. Yeah, I wish I could give you more. I just don't remember. I will say this. We use an in-body, we have a bod pod, and we do something called a three-compartment model. And I really like my in-body. But the in-body alone, that's based on water shifts. So this
Okay.
type of extreme diet, it the in-body was not very effective for saying what really happened. I think the in-body maybe had me saying that I gained like 2 pounds of lean mass, and you don't gain muscle when you're walking 6 hours a day for 4 days. So you got to be careful on if people are gonna try something like this, you got to be careful on what you're gonna use to assess your results. Um, Again, we tested body water, body density with a bod pod, and then we actually had a formula for bone mineral density. So we were able to use the top method that scientists use to estimate true body composition changes. And that told a true story, which I actually lost a
Ah,
little bit of lean mass, which isn't surprising.
right. So this thing separates water loss from fat loss.
Well, no, it's called basically it's like a three compartment model. So you use the in body, that's designed to tell you how much body water you have. Then when you also need to estimate your body density, and you can only get that through either underwater weighing or through a bod pod. So a bod pod's another body composition type. And then you also need bone mineral density, which DEXA would typically does give you that. I don't have a DEXA, so we just used population means for me for my subject. So we were able to we use that and then we piece together this is your true or as close to the true estimation of what actually happened out of the 5 pounds that I lost.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm so keen to hear what happens here with these women and if it helps and if the HRT group loses more and proves my given the body the right tools to lose, which I think it's going to. I mean, because we have seen that in prior research, but not like this, what
Yes.
you're doing. Yeah. Yeah.
But now we have the I don't know, the hornet's nest of, oh, well, what HRT are they on? Is it the right balance of estrogen? Like
Oh,
I'm not
true.
controlling for that. They just have to be
Yeah.
taking something. But that's where my lab will go in the future. We
Hmm.
will dial this in and try to get
Get more
recommendations that
granular.
would,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, that would hopefully apply to a lot of women, at least in a general direction.
Hmm. In your all your research that you have done on fat loss, which has been extreme, did you compare intermittent fasting to regular caloric restriction and kind of see because I saw that there was a paper done in your thing that I was reading this morning about I think I have it written down here. Intermittent fasting, protein pacing are superior to caloric restriction for weight and visceral fat loss. Is that what you also basically saw in your research? Like when intermittent fasting started to come on the scene, do you see that it's superior to just calorie restriction?
So my lab has not done we have not conducted our own intermittent fasting diet research. We've done carbohydrate cycling, diet breaks, diet refeed. So we've done more that type of research, but intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding we haven't done. And but
Okay.
I'm up to date on that research. And in terms of body composition, time restricted feeding is no better or worse than a typical diet that doesn't have windows of feeding and fasting, as long as the calories are controlled. Now, while that's true, I personally follow a type of time restricted feeding protocol simply because, and I don't like to call it that because then I get labeled as something. I just don't eat breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning, so to me it makes sense. I want to eat when my normal and natural hunger levels are higher, which to me is in the afternoon and more evening. So for a lot of people, time restricted feeding or intermittent fasting, I think it makes a lot of sense. But I
Mhm.
can't say it's the research suggests that it is better because I that data doesn't exist. It's if the calories are controlled, calories and protein are controlled, they are it's typically better or it's typically the same.
Typically the same. I just think maybe mentally easier to do
Yes.
time restricted eating. Yeah, that's
Oh,
what I
and
think.
an,
Yeah.
and on that note, other studies have had women do it, and this is was in women when they were following a time restricted feeding. They compared that to flexible dieting, which I'm a flexible dieting advocate. Flexible dieting group was told, "Hey, you diet and reduce your calories 500 calories a day." The intermittent fasting group, they just said reduce your eating window from like 12 to 8. They weren't told to diet. They naturally dieted but they didn't even know they were dieting. So that's pretty
Mm,
powerful
that
psychologically
is.
if you're reducing your calories without even knowing it. Because if you tell me I'm on a diet, even if I'm not, well, now I'm hungry just because you told me I'm dieting.
Same. Yeah.
Now I'm a grouchy.
Me too. I'm immediately like, screw you, I'm gonna go eat now.
Yes,
I'm
that's right.
starving. Everything comes up inside of me like, no.
Yes.
Yeah, if I was in your research right now doing this 4 day extreme diet, that's how I would have to do it. I would have to eat just one meal a day and get it all in at once, but it would be later in the day. It'd be like dinner. It'd be one meal a day, just dinner, get all the calories in that I need because it's so much easier just to not eat than have these little tiny morsels throughout the day trying to keep within that caloric restriction. So, what about I want to know what you've seen then with time restricted, I mean, sorry, refeeds, carb cycling. Is this the way? Is this how we should like, let's just forget about the whole menopausal thing for a second. just general weight loss and success with weight loss, do you see that that works best?
Yes. And I'll give some context to
Yeah.
to my affirmative response. My lab motto is to help people optimize their physiques within a maintainable lifestyle. So I don't like extreme things, even though we're doing extreme things.
Yeah.
I want you to be able to adopt behaviors that will help you not gain excess body fat. So, one thing we know from previous research, and this is going to be about these, what we'll call we can call it a diet break, but a carbohydrate refeed approach. We
Hmm.
know that people tend to eat more calories on the weekends. Just they're not in a routine as much, probably do more out to eat. So people in our culture eat more calories on the weekends than they do Monday through Friday. So if that's the case, I think it makes sense. Let's design a diet around what you would naturally do anyway. So in our study, we called it a carbohydrate refeed study, but essentially, we had one group of subjects diet the same amount every day for 7 weeks, 25% lower calories every day. The other group, the refeed group, they dieted harder Monday through Friday. They actually reduced their calories by 35%. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we took them back to maintenance. To me, that makes sense because you normally eat more on the weekends anyway. Let's design a diet around that lifestyle. And we told them, as you're increasing your calories on Saturday and Sunday, let's get most of them from carbs. And that was based on a theory or some prior research about leptin levels in carbs.
Hmm.
Weak research, but nonetheless, it was present. And what we found at the end of 7 weeks was there was no difference in fat loss, but the group that was increasing their calories on the weekends, and it's important to say they ate the same number of calories as the other group. It was just that they ate fewer calories Monday through Friday, but more on the weekends. They maintained their muscle mass significantly more than the group that didn't have this increase in calories. And same thing with metabolic rate. They maintained their metabolism significantly
Yes.
more. So, one, it fit their lifestyle better. And two, it did have better long-term outcomes, not in fat, but in the lean tissue compartment.
Oh my gosh, I love that that's what you found with that. That's so interesting. Why do you think that kept the muscle tissue?
So, our theory is when you're dieting in a caloric deficit every day for 7 weeks, that is a catabolic state that you are in perpetually. You don't build
Mm.
muscle in a catabolic state.
Mhm.
But in this case, for the other group, they were in a catabolic state 5 days out of the week, but on 2 days, they were not in a catabolic state. Calories were increased. So there's a global theory as to what happened. We also know when you increase carbs, what goes up in the body? Insulin. Now, we didn't measure insulin, but insulin is very anti-catabolic. So if you have insulin spikes, that lowers muscle protein breakdown. So our second theory was, yes, we didn't measure insulin, so we can't prove that that was the mechanism, but it makes sense that by eating significantly more calories from carbs 2 days out of 7, you have elevated insulin levels that could be preventing the breakdown of muscle. So those are the two reasons. Being having an anabolic or at least a neutral anabolic state 2 days out of 7, and then possibly leveraging the anti-catabolic effects of insulin.
Yes. I think hormonally speaking, it's so much better for our hormones when you do a refeed in the week, right? Because if you, like you just said, like if you're perpetually in that low calorie state for 7 weeks, or longer, some people go much longer, you're signaling to your body on the inside that there's not a lot of food around. And so what's the body do? It goes, we're either in winter or we're in a famine. Not the time to sustain a pregnancy, not the time to get pregnant. Let's lower the sex hormones. Let's
Mhm.
lower fertility. And
Yep.
so women, you'll see this in women that follow low carb fasting type lifestyles for, years on end because they're so successful with it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then they start, oh, I lost my period, or I went into menopause early, or, I lost my hair, or I have insomnia. Like everything kind of or I started gaining weight. And it's all starts to reverse itself because you just perpetually are signaling that there's nothing around. So let's mess with the hormones.
Yeah. And you're not the first person that has mentioned ketogenic diets. And again, I'm not anti-ketogenic diet. For some people, it's a good diet. But the long-term outcomes, you're not the first person to suggest, hey, this might not be good as a lifestyle diet for certain people.
No, and for men as well, like they're seeing like luteinizing hormones going down and testosterone levels are going down and over
Oh,
long
it's
term.
yeah, it's clearly not the best diet for optimizing muscle mass. That's I can cite multiple studies. The one benefit though, because again, I'm not anti-keto,
Mhm.
but the one benefit that it does, it's the best diet to suppress appetite.
Mhm.
So if for somebody that really is food obsessive, if they can adhere to that diet for a period of time while they lose their excess body fat, that may be one of the better or even the best choice in terms of helping them with hunger.
Yeah. Yeah. And years ago, I used to just I was paleo and then I went to hardcore keto and fasting in my group. Like we supply meal plans to them every week. So I went through all these diet trends in the group. I've had it for 7 years now. And then I was like, after working with so many women, I just realized I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense. Like biologically, this doesn't make sense to the female body to do it like this. And so I came up with my own, I call it the hormone and metabolic reboot plan. And it is carb cycling. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's that some days
Ah,
we'll go into like super low carb, and then other days we're in an excess of carbs. And some days we're intermittent fasting, some days we're not, so that it's constantly like this, so that you're signaling to your body, hey, hormones, you can stick around, but you're also allowing the system to tap into those fat stores by going into caloric deficit and going low carb. Anyway, so
yes.
you validated it all for me. Thank you. That I'm onto
And it's
something.
fun to change things up.
Well, and that too, right? Like it's like, come on, it gets so, yeah.
Yep.
We don't want to be that restrictive if we don't have to. And like you, I think keto can be a really good therapeutic tool. Same with carnivore diets. I've seen people's lives change from them 100% and their health change from them. It's just, I think if you can pull out of that, the sooner the better. If you can start to get that metabolic flexibility, I think that should be the goal. Um, but yeah, so and just quick, do you see that it works best to kind of do weight loss in chunks? Like, okay, I'm going to go on this, like, I'm going to kind of drop the calories. I'm going to do this maybe cycling to get some fat off, but then maybe just maintain for a while. Like, does that work better?
I don't have I do have research in obese populations where aggressive seems to have better long-term outcomes. The way that I would approach this is almost like on a client by client basis. Hey, if they need to lose or want to lose excess body fat, do you see yourself being excited at the idea of doing this very aggressively for a couple of days and then maintaining that? Or would you rather, dip your toe in the water and do a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months? So I would put a coaching hat on here and leverage the interest of a client. Um, because some people they don't want to be aggressive. And other people like me right now, I don't want to diet for 3 months. Like I just want to get in and get out. So I would have, with the lack of research, I'm going to leverage client buy-in. So case by case.
Yeah. And really kind of work also with how our brains work when it comes to dieting, which is great that you try to keep that in, like take that into consideration. And I also heard you say on your video that, you have to also take into consideration with clients that, if they don't feel well and they feel like garbage and they're depressed, let's say because they have lost hormones and they feel miserable, they're not sleeping, they have cravings, to say to that person, work out harder and eat less, it's not, if that's not fair to your client. It's like, we got to get you feeling well so that you can do those things. And I think that that has to be recognized, especially with midlife women.
Yeah, and it's funny that those messages seem to come from men in their 20s or even women in their like young women that are nowhere near
Yes.
menopause,
Yeah.
but they have all the answers and it's like, well, let's
Let's just wait till you get here and see how you
yeah,
feel about that.
let's get a little bit more life experience. And even if not you like you don't like it could just be, hey, work with more women clients of that age to get some experience. So yeah, but
Yeah.
it's the most opinionated tend to be the younger generation.
Yeah, I just recorded a podcast about estrogen and metabolism, and I was talking about how when we lose our estrogen, we can become more depressed, lean on the side of depression. Some women get very depressed, actually. We see that death by suicide is most prevalent in women from ages 45 to 54, I think, or something. It's
Oh,
menopausal
wow.
range. Yeah. And that's
I
not
did
a
not know that, but
coincidence.
that
Yeah.
100% makes sense.
It does. It does. I mean, we need estrogen to make serotonin, and we need progesterone for GABA, and it really does affect our mood and our mental health, and that really needs to be recognized. I mean, come on, people. But anyways, I mentioned in there because I'm like, you start losing your estrogen, and we're becoming more insulin resistant, and we're gaining weight, and we're tired, and we're not sleeping. Hello, do you want to sit down and eat the chicken breast with broccoli? No, never, ever. Like, you want to eat chocolate, you want to eat high fat foods, and like it's so hard to be healthy when you don't feel well and you're depressed. And if you've never felt true depression, it's an awful, awful feeling, and you don't want to go out and be social and go for a walk and go
Yeah.
to the gym. Like, no, you want to lie on a couch and eat crap. That's what you want to do, and you can't judge somebody for that until you've actually gone through it. So
Yeah.
anyways, Bill, I appreciate you. I love all the work that you're doing. What do you have in store for us then? Like, where are you going with all of this? Like, you're going to become the hormone expert, obviously. You're working
I
on
don't know
that.
about expert, but as I told you, I'm drinking from the the
Those.
HRT fire hose.
Yeah.
Um,
I love it.
yeah. And the biggest lesson I've learned so far is that nobody agrees on the same protocols. So, hey,
Yeah.
that's
It's just good to be open-minded. Everybody needs
yes.
something different. That's what I tell everybody, because people will hear somebody and they'll hear their protocol and be like, is that what I should be doing, Karen? And I'm like, slow down. There's millions of women doing other protocols and it's working just fine and they feel great. Everyone's an individual, and you want to find a practitioner who sees you as an individual and who is open-minded.
Yes. Yeah, so I think after I get this preliminary data,
Yeah.
we're doing a massive female fitness menopause survey, first study ever of its kind, because there's nobody ever that has done a female fitness menopause survey. So we're the first ones.
I
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. I mean, women weren't even researched in the research until the 90s, I heard. Like,
I think
it
it
was
depends
never.
in what area, but I had my team like, hey, let's start by getting all of the other fitness surveys that have been done for women in menopause. They all came
It
back
didn't take
nothing. And I'm
long.
like, I couldn't find it. Yeah, I asked all of
It's
my
so
followers,
bad.
tell me what I'm not, tell me, show me, because my followers are like they know the research. So once we do that, I think what I want to do is identify women who are claiming weight loss resistance, then get them into another case series study. So 10, 15, 20 of them, validate that they are actually having weight loss resistance, that they're actually dieting, doing the things that should cause weight loss, and then put them on some type of anti-inflammatory diet, prescribe HRT, and see what can we do to get excess body fat lowered. Is HRT the answer? Is it a anti-inflammatory diet? So that's where I'm going next.
That's so great. And then these will be published research papers.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
they're
Everything
all
I do.
properly done. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. That's
You're
my
not messing
contribution to
around.
the space.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great contribution. I appreciate it so much. And I look forward to having you back to discuss all these findings. It's
Yes,
great.
yeah, I'd love
It's
to come
awesome.
back.
Thank you for doing this for
Yeah,
women.
I have a lot of respect for you and your knowledge. I'm so glad that you've been doing this for many years. I wish I would have heard of you. Oh man, my wife and she would have been in a much better situation.
Right? Yeah, I know. I'm on a mission to get the word out there and help women because yeah, we're a population that is being forgotten about and it's really too bad. And we've been forgotten about since the WHI study. So it's time.
Yes.
It's time for us to be resurrected. And I always tell women that these can be the best years of your life. And don't like we talk a lot about the negative and we're talking all about all this weight you're gonna gain, you're gonna become a train wreck. But these years can honestly be the best years. It's when you really find yourself and you're looking out for you finally, not everybody else. And I love it. Like I'm almost 50 and I'm just like, I've never felt better. I feel like I look great. I'm like, bring it on, bring my 50s on. I'm ready for it. And that's where I want women to go. That's what I want them to feel. And majority of us don't feel like that. I just had a woman reach out to me last night, crying on her voice message, going, I just need help. I don't know what to do. And I just cry all the time. And I'm like, this shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be that we have to get to this hot mess before somebody's helping us. So, anyways, I can go off on a tangent here, but anyways, I appreciate once again that you're doing this, that you're kind of leading the charge on figuring this out for women and especially for women in fitness. I think that that's great because, yeah, there's more and more women in the fitness space that are really trying to take care of their bodies. And so I think
Yes.
they deserve to be researched.
And I'm hoping, and again, I hate the word exclusive, but it also sends a message to the women not in the space. Now, again, they might not ever hear of this, but it really impresses upon them. I can't even get into his studies unless I'm been lifting weights for a few months. So it really impresses upon, and again, I don't think everybody lifting weights is the best, but can you walk? Can you do something? I'm
Mhm.
um so yes, I want to also impress upon people a fitness lifestyle so key here. Um
It really is.
yeah, so it actually is I'm making it an exclusionary criteria, as we say in research, to participate in these studies. Because let me also say, there's no lacking of studies, at least survey studies for women in menopause that are just nothing with fitness. Like there's thousands of surveys, across, for women going through menopause.
But none on
None
fitness
on
or
fitness.
women that are, yeah, exercising and taking care of their
Yep.
body, which it also has to shift during this time. Like how we used to work out is not how we should be working out in, over the age of 50, I would think, right? Like we need
Yeah,
to be
that's
lifting
another pod.
heavier. Yeah, that's another podcast. I know. Yeah. All right, Bill, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you very much.